Gentlemen, welcome to the Coach's Huddle, man. This week, the huddle is going to the ring. What we're talking about today is ignoring expectations. We know in life, everybody has expectations of things they want to do. Some people have higher expectations than others. Our guest today, expectations are an understatement. It's hard when you go into a profession that your dad happens to be one of the baddest mamma jammers on the planet. Our guest today is none other than the 16 wins, and 9 of them are coming by putting people to sleep. I mean, that's a tough thing to do. The one, the only, Sugar Man, Shane Mosley Jr. Champ, thank you for coming on in the huddle tonight. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. This is awesome. I appreciate it.
Well, listen, we excited to have you here. We can't wait to kind of get into the conversation of expectations, and not just that, just learn a little bit more about you. And the things that you kind of go through and what life looks like for a professional boxer, not just a boxer, but a father, a husband, and the many things that you have going on. So without further ado, let's get right into it. If that's okay with you.
Oh, that's great.
Out of all the careers you could have chose, you could have been a doctor. You could have been a lawyer. You could have been a bus driver. I've heard my child tell me he want to be a bus driver. We'll talk about that later. Out of all the things you chose to get into boxing, which unfortunately, with your father having the career that he's had, I guarantee that comparison has been in there from the first time you put on a glove. How do you deal with that pressure, having to live up to such the allure of being Sugar Shane Mosley's son?
Well, of course I could have picked any profession that I wanted. I honestly think that the statement, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, is a very true statement. I think when you are around something enough, you build a loving towards it or an appreciation towards it. And I most definitely found a loving for boxing. But, for me, getting into boxing was never to do what my dad did or wanted to be like him or anything like that. I wanted to have my own success. I wanted to have my own name. And I wanted to have my own future. So whatever that may be, I am going towards being the best Shane Mosley Jr. that I can be, not, to extend, Sugar Shane Mosley's legacy. It's to have my own legacy. And if people want to compare that, or they want to, say, wow, this family is great, then, that's cool. But I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it for me and for my family and for my future. And that's what I look at it. And that's how I have looked at it.
So I understand that, but let me ask you this question, because for the viewer who watches this, who's trying to get into a sport and their dad or mom or cousin has been this great name or this legacy kid, and they are doing it because they love it, but then there's still a bit of pressure. Because I guarantee you, I know you were doing it for you, but still, I know there has to be someone in the back of your mind like, you know what? I only still got to represent for me. I got to represent for my family name, because this is what my family does. What do you tell that young man, that young lady, that young athlete who's battling or dealing with that type of pressure?
You have to separate yourself from that, because let's just say, for instance, it was the opposite, right? Let's just say my dad was a drug dealer or went to jail all the time. That doesn't condemn me to being that. I have to, and some people will probably say, oh, you're going to be just like him. You're going to be nothing. And if you have it in your mind that I'm going to do something different, right, then you have to separate yourself from that. And yes, I am in the same profession as my father, but I don't want to be my father. I want to be the best that I can be. And I have to separate myself from that. And if people are going to compare, I have to disassociate that with me, right? I have to go, look, I agree. He was a boxer. He was a great boxer, but he's not me, and I will never be him. And I can never be him, no matter how bad I try to duplicate that, no matter how much I sound like him, no matter how much I fight like him, whatever the case is, I will never be him. And if I continue to think that I'm going to be like him or anything of that nature, the more the comparisons are going to be. So I think the best thing to do is disassociate yourself with that and try to find goals that you want to hit, find goals that you want to get to, and challenge yourself to be the best you that you can be.
I think you hit a lot of things on the head, and that's about embracing you, embracing what you want to do. You know, you made a point. You said, you know, no matter how much you want to fight like him and talk like him. A quick story for everybody who's out here watching. So the way me and this gentleman met was on a basketball court, right? We were at a gathering and we were sitting there playing basketball. I mean, now when you talk about, sometimes when you meet people who do things, some people, they act real brand new, you know, they act real like uppity. Not this guy. He was out there hooping with the kids. We was out there getting it in. And I didn't even know his name. I was like, we're going to call him Ali because he had a shirt on that said Ali. I was like Ali Boombaye. I mean, we was out there playing basketball and, you know, I ain't really no hooper and, you know, I can't even see. So it was getting dark. They was trying to keep me out there. But then I kept telling my wife, I'm like, listen, I know you may think I'm crazy, but I swear he looked just like Sugar Shane Mosley. She like, who? I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm probably just going crazy. I didn't even find out till like the day after, like, my wife's like, you know, because my wife and his wife, they were talking and they went to Instagramming. And I'm like, she's like, you might have been right about that Mosley thing. I think it said something about a tribe of I'm like, what you talking about? And I went to look and sure as hell, it was him. So what I saw from that was you were standing on your own. You were being Shane Mosley Jr., but not Jr. as in trying to be your father. You were being yourself. So with that, it leads me to my next question is, for the world who doesn't know, because I guarantee you when they see, oh, Sugar Shane Mosley, what does he do? What is he like? Who is Shane Mosley Jr.? Here's your chance to tell the world what is or who is Shane Mosley Jr.?
I would like to say first that I am a husband, a father, a professional fighter, and a godly man.
And you're a dog owner.
Yes, I am. I'm a dog owner.
A lot of people have no idea what it takes to be a professional athlete. Everybody thinks that, you know, man, I tell you what, back in my day, if I would have did this, that I could have did that. If I would have did this, I could have been there. Outside of the ring, what do you do when you're not training and doing it? I seen on your Instagram, you talking about I'm doing 1,000 sit-ups before bed. First off, I ain't doing 1,000 sit-ups before bed in about the last 10 years, so I'm proud of you for that. What do you do when you're not training? What's fun?
Well, to be honest, I think that, you know, I live a pretty, or at least try to live a pretty normal life. Like you said, we met at a gathering. I like to, you know, gather with good friends. I like to hang out with my family. And, you know, boxing is my life. My family is my life. So I'm constantly doing that. I'm constantly training. Whether it be, you know, if I have a fight or not, I like to, you know, do anything physical, like you said, we were playing basketball. Yeah, I mean, I was on the basketball court for hours, and you know, just running. So I like to be active. So I like to do active things, and yeah, just being with my family, being with people that I care about. And trying to be, you know, the best athlete that I can be. And to do that, you have to be consistently doing something. Whether that mean, like, let's say if like for your athletes, right, like football, right, football season, like you guys have a football season, right? But when you're out of football season, you still need to be doing things that will go along with that. Whether that be like mental training, whether that means books, whether that means like, you know, things you can work on as far as like building up muscles, or whether that means therapy. You know what I mean? Like, to be honest, a lot of people don't think that like sports or their athletic, you know, thing is mental, and most of it is, right? So you do things to better sharpen your mental, you know,
aptitude,
your mentality, your mental aptitude, anything of that nature. So I think that those are important. And so that when it's time to play or fight or whatever, you know, it may be, you can turn that switch and be ready to get into it.
Okay. Makes sense. Just kind of basically, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
There it is.
In a synopsis. So if you are if you were telling that person that, because right now you have a family, you have kids, you're a professional fighter. I saw you were on the Contender. You made it all the way down to the finals. You're doing a lot of good things. So you're not 21. You're not 22. So you have a lot of responsibilities. Excuse me. You have a lot of responsibilities that you're doing while you're doing this. What do you tell that person who still has these dreams and still has that family and trying to complete and do all these things? What advice do you give to him to keep his dream going? Or her? Everybody got dreams.
Absolutely. So I think the most important thing when you have a family is to have a good team, a good support system, people that are behind you, people that can help you through. In my case, I have a great wife that, holds down the house when I'm doing my thing, right? Finding those things and those people that can help support your dream. And I think if you're married, that's a good woman that supports you and believes in you, and that can also hold down your kids and making sure that they are, learning and growing up to be good people, so that you can do your thing, and then they feed each other, right? You have a great house, and hopefully, if you're doing the right thing, you got a house so that they live in.
There you go. Now, I know sometimes in some sports like football, you have a football player, like, if I'm not mistaken, Adrian Peterson. He said, I don't want my child to play football. Football is such a violent game, such a physical game. The last thing I want my son to do is play football. Now, your father was a boxer, so you and your father been in some big fights. So you don't been around in some big fights yourself as being his son. As a father and having kids yourself, how do you feel about your children if they would say, hey, Dad, I want to get into boxing? Would that be something that you would support? Would that be something that you'd be excited about? What are your feelings on that when you have a child who wants to get into a sport? Or if your child didn't want to get into the same sport that you play, would that be disappointing for you?
So right off the bat, I would not want my kid to be in boxing. It's a hard life, and now if they, were very, what's the right word? Adamant about doing it. Thank you. If they're very adamant about being a boxer and doing that, then I would, support them. But, I would let them know that I wouldn't want them to do that. Now, if they still wanted to do that, then it's something that they want to do. And because I would have to tell them that I didn't want them to do it, and for them to show me that they did want to do it, even though I told them not to, that means that they will do it no matter what. That means that they have it. That means that it is theirs. Because if I say that I'm against this, I don't want you to do this, and I let them know that from the beginning, then that means that they really want to do this, and they're going to take it as such and be the best that they can possibly be, because they're going against their father's word. So if they're going against their father's word, they're going to mess up and mean it. You know what I mean? So, I do think that, my kids will most definitely know how to fight. They will know how to protect themselves. And I would want them to love boxing, but I don't want them to do boxing. Now, if you want to, be a manager, or you want to be a promoter or something like that, hopefully I can get you in the right, direction. If you love boxing that much, go ahead and promote, go ahead and, manage somebody, or make sure that the sport is better because of you, rather than, you don't got to get hit for a living. Hopefully I'm doing my job enough so you don't ever have to get hit. You don't have to. You can get a good education. You can go to any school you want to go to. You can, have everything that, you want, so that you can, or you're in a good position so that you can get everything that you need to get, right? I put you in a good position, a good start, right? So that's what I would want. And I would want my kids to, be their own. I would want them to be an entrepreneur, or, if they wanted to help people, be a doctor, or, be something of your own.
To basically take their own path. So coincidentally, I asked a question that I asked to you growing up, did your father want you to box, or did you kind of, how you say, going against your father's word? Did your father want you to box and you said, no, Dad, this is what I want to do. I want to fight. Or how was that coming for when you grew up?
My dad was a little bit different. He wasn't very vocal either which way. He wasn't necessarily for it or he wasn't necessarily against it. He was very, very neutral about it. But when I did tell him that I wanted to, fight, he told me that you have to do it. Like, if you're going to do it, do it. If you're going to do it, do it. So with that being said, I did it. And, I'm making a pretty good account for myself, and I'm still in the game after 6 years professionally. So I'm doing pretty good.
You're doing big things now. I wondered, does this happen and the boxing side of the house? I know it happens on the football side. So my son, he'll go play a football game, and I'm over here. I critique everything. Well, son, you could have did this. You had to do, if you'd have done this like this, as if I would have just had this perfect play, knowing I may not have been able to do the same things that I'm asking him to do. Do you find that being the same in when he's like, well, you could have stuck the parry. I'm not, mind you, I'm just using boxing phrases that I probably don't even using right. But you put the jab with the 1-2. Do you find at the same time, and do you kind of take it like, okay, Dad, like, I hear you, but this is what I felt when my situation was going.
Right. So for me, I felt as though my dad wasn't the best coach for me, and I think that was a good find for me. I think it kind of helped me create my own thing, my own way of thinking, and how I want to break down a fight. I feel like sometimes for me, when I get told something, or when I did get told something by my dad, it felt twice as hard because I was getting told by my coach and my dad. You know what I mean? And for me, it just stuck harder. I wasn't able to disassociate. I wasn't able to disassociate in that moment with my dad being in my corner. So it was hard for me to do that. You know what I mean? Because I'd been around my dad whole entire life, and he was my disciplinary. He was my, everything, all these things. And now he's my coach. And for him to tell me something, you didn't do this right. Then I'm like, like it's like worse. So, absolutely. Now, if you were like coaching your son's team, and you are like, he's on a professional team, and you're the head coach, and you're telling him something, it'd be hard, right? Like, it'd be hard.
It can be difficult.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think for me, and especially when I feel like I need to disassociate myself, right? I feel like I need to, if I'm going to be my own man, how can I have my dad in my corner if I'm trying to be my own man, right? Like, if I'm trying to be my own, legend one day, or a great fighter, or, world champion, all of these things, how can I do that if every time I go up to fight, somebody's comparing me? Oh, he doesn't do this like his dad. He's not as fast as his dad. He's not this like his dad. And it's easy for them to do that because he's literally standing right in the corner with me. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be like, oh yeah, no, he's not like him. He's not like this. He doesn't do this like you. He doesn't. You know what I mean? It's like I'm like poisoning myself, right? So for me, I felt like it was best for him to not be my coach. I feel like since I made that change, I've kind of grown as a fighter, and that wasn't because like I didn't want him to be there or anything like that. I just feel like it was the best move.
Understand.
And I feel like I was right. You know what I mean? So, and I feel like, especially for the people that may feel like that, feel like they have some pressure, try that out. Maybe that might work. I know that's not an easy conversation to have. It wasn't easy for me and my father to have that conversation. But overall it'll get resolved. You know what I mean? As long as you're honest with that person, and truthfully, it will be better for you to be honest and have conflict in that moment than to not settle that conflict and be holding on to that, and because that's ultimately going to affect your game, right? You might as well squash that conflict, say what you need to say to that person, get whatever thing out of the way, say, hey, this is what I feel is best. If you really support me, if you really love me like you say you do, then you would understand. You would understand that I need to be able to have this in order to make myself better and try to grow as a person. And if I change my mind, I hope that you would be there. If you know what I mean, like I hope that you as my father will be there if I have made the wrong decision. If this wasn't the right decision, will you be there? And most likely they will. That's your father, right? You know what I mean? Or that's your parent. So most likely they're going to be there for you. No matter if you scrape your knees, and you know what I mean? They've been doing it since you was a kid. They're going to do it when you're older too. And they're going to do it when you're old man. Absolutely. You scrape your knees, they're going to say, hey, you messed up, but come here. I'm going to clean it for you. You know what I mean? So ultimately, I think that, if that is your situation, don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to settle that conflict. I know that it's hard sometimes and it may seem, deathly, but go ahead and do that.
Sounds good. So now what's next for Shane Mosley Jr. as the fighter? What do you have next? We talk about making that separation. So look, what's next? When do we get to see you put them paws on somebody again? What's going on in the boxing? I know Corona Lachey, the virus, is the champ right now. He's knocking out everybody. But what's next?
Oh, man. Hopefully I can get something next year, like first quarter next year, which would be January, February, March, somewhere in that, range. As of right now, it doesn't look very, very good for me for the rest of this year, unfortunately. But that's just kind of the way, it is right now. It's hard like that for everybody out there. But that doesn't mean I stop training. That doesn't mean I stop grinding and trying to make myself better. And so when I do get the call, I will be ready for action. So hopefully when it is time to open back up and sometime next year, I can get a good, decent fight so that I can be where I need to be going into next year.
Okay. So the main topic of this pod or this video today was ignoring expectations, and you found a way to be able to ignore those expectations, and you seem like you are very solid in yourself and who you are, the family man, the father, and the fighter. If you had to give a last piece of wisdom that you want to give to that aspiring fighter, that young man, that young lady, that thing that you said, I wish I knew when I was young and I was first starting, what would that be?
I think to trust yourself. And, I don't know if it's good to cuss on here, but I think it's important.
Go ahead.
It's important. Don't give a fuck. To be honest, that is really the biggest thing that you can do. If you trust yourself and just don't give a fuck about whatever it is that's going on, if you don't care about anything else or anybody's expectations or anybody or anything else, or what anybody else is doing. Oh, he's doing this, or he's got this on Instagram, or he's got this many followers, or he makes this much money. It don't matter. At the end of the day, that doesn't matter. All that matters is that when you get to where you are, get to a fight or get to that game, you need to be the best that you can be. So none of that matters. And put yourself in the mindset to when you get to that point, nothing is going to stop you. And if you are caring about who's in the stands, or if my dad's over there, or whatever the case is, or he is doing this, or he beat me last game, or, whatever the case is, all that's going to stop you from being the best that you can be. And I wish that somebody would have told me that. And I wish I would have trusted myself enough to say, hey, I don't care what you got. I don't care how many fights you got. I don't care how much training you got. I don't care if you've beat me in sparring or whatever the case is. You're not going to beat me today. When it counts, you're not going to beat me, and you can't beat me.
I think I mean, I don't know what else to say, man. I turn this over. This is the last segment where I call it my final timeout, where I kind of recap what we did. First off, the final timeout today. Listen up, everybody who's tuning in. Expectations are meant to be guidelines. Guidelines are just that, guidelines. And all lines can be crossed. They cross when you're coloring. They cross when you're on traffic lines. Lines are meant to be crossed. Habitual line steppers. So you can never let anything keep you in a box. And whatever it is that you have to know, what are you aiming for? If you're aiming to reach a goal, what's going to stop you from reaching that goal? Because the only thing that can stop you is yourself. It doesn't matter what your name is. It doesn't matter what your father's name is. It doesn't matter how much money you got, no matter how much money you don't have. You may be born poor, but if you die poor, guess what? That was your fault. We live in a country where you can go out there and get it. You can be the heavyweight champion or middleweight or lightweight. Middleweight champion of the world. Or like myself, you be the heavyweight champion of the world. It all depends on the fight that you have and the expectations that you set for yourself. But don't let somebody else's expectations guide who you are. You need to ignore those expectations and make yourself the best you that you can be. I like to thank everybody for taking the time. We like to thank our guests. Shane, where can they find you? For people who want to follow you, people who want to keep up with you, where can they link up to follow the champ? Because we want to watch the growth, man. We want to see the next great. How can we keep up with you?
At Shane Mosley Jr. on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Shane Mosley or at one Shane Mosley Jr. on Twitter. And Facebook is just my name, at Shane Mosley Jr. I think I also have a tribe called Mosley on Facebook. So, check them all out.
We got you, man. Listen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We hope y'all enjoyed the Huddle, man. Coach Hudson, we out. Boom.